What is good, everybody, man? Welcome into the Bluebloods official podcast of FCS Football Central on SI. As always, joined by my guy, Coach Leroy Frederick, man. It's been a little while, Coach. I don't think people understand how busy you guys are during the start of fall camp, man. So, how we feeling? And let the people know what you've been up to, man, because I don't think people realize the work y'all are putting in over in Lorman.
Man, it's not just here, but anywhere, everywhere. When you're talking football, you're talking fall camp, man. It's a lot of early mornings, late nights, uh, dinner. My dinner is yellow cake, chocolate icing, uh, chased by some Gatorade. A lot of that kind of stuff going on. I wish I could show you my office floor, sunflower seeds, grass, all kind of stuff on that thing, man. But
Our, our
hey,
guy D said you're still sweating from that heat.
it was fine this morning early, and then all of a sudden, man, into that second hour, I wouldn't lie to you. It was like, whoa, where did this come from? No more breeze. Uh, the sun had dried up the dew on the grass. It was serious business out there.
Man, well, we're gonna have to have a little bit of an expedited episode, man. But me and Coach will be back soon to finish this one up. Coach got a positional meeting coming up in about 30 minutes, man. So we're gonna be flying through some of these topics. So, Coach, let's not waste any time here. The FCS Stats Perform Top 25 finally released the official media poll at the FCS level. Coach, real quick, we'll just take these in chunks of five, working our way up real quick. So from 20 to 25, we got 20 Western Carolina, 21 Tarleton State. I know you're really high on the Texans this year. 22 Weber State, 23 Nichols, 24 North Dakota, 25 Youngstown. Coach, any surprises here in the back end of the top 25?
Really, Western Carolina breaking through. And I know it's not really, high, so to speak, but just that they got a little love to get into the top 25. That's surprising to me with what they lost, not just from a player standpoint, but from, the coaching standpoint, the guys with the collar shirts. Surprising to see them get in, like I say, even though it's not super high, but just surprising to see them actually top get into the charts.
You remember how long it took for them to break in last year? I mean, they were sitting at like 7-1 or something like that,
And no
and
love.
couldn't get in the top 25. Like there were people there, especially the coaches poll. The coaches poll was just atrocious last
Brutal.
year. But coach, going to 15 to 19, we got William and Mary at 15, Albany at 16, Lafayette 17, UC Davis 18, Illinois State 19. Getting to the rest of the top 15, you got Incarnate Word at 14, Richmond 13, Furman 12, Central Arkansas 11. Coach, takeaways from there.
Albany.
Yeah.
They lost an awful lot to see them start as high as they are. It's kind of surprising. Um, you know, to me, as we've always talked, it's really doesn't get jumped off to week three,
Yeah.
so to speak. But just to see them come in that high, again, they lost a lot. So maybe they have reloaded and we just don't know about it. But to see them come in that high is very, very, very surprising.
I'll say this, me and Timothy actually released an audio episode. So if you listen to the podcast, just audio version, me and Timothy did about 45 minutes breaking down the entire top 25. So if you want my like true in-depth thoughts on this, since we got to keep this live
Go
stream
give
a
it
little
a
bit
listen.
short. Yeah, you can go give that a listen, man, because I really, really kind of give my feelings about everything. But I will say, Coach, I'm not surprised that they're here because I don't know if the other voters are as high on them. I really do think Illinois State is going to shock a lot of people. Now, this is a big 180 for me, Coach. If you remember about 4 months ago, I trashed Illinois State and I was like, man, where is the hype at? Coach, I went and looked at the film. Me and Timothy worked on getting the returning starters back, looked at the roster, started watching some film on the guys they got coming back. If they get a quarterback, I think
Hmm.
they possibly could finish top 3 in the Valley.
What's their toughest game?
I want to say it's probably South Dakota State or North Dakota State, I would imagine. I mean,
On the road, right?
Hang on, I'm pulling up their schedule right now. I think they got one at home, one on the road, if I'm not mistaken. So, coach, here's their schedule. They open up the season at Iowa, but that's a money game. That doesn't really count toward anything. But then they got North Alabama, Western Illinois, Eastern Illinois out of conference. You probably can go 3-0 there, maybe 2-1, depending on how Eastern is. But then you open up conference play, North Dakota State coming to Illinois for homecoming.
Big.
And then you get Youngstown at home, who I think is a pretty good team. Oh, and they missed South Dakota State this year, coach.
Even bigger.
State. And you get North Dakota at home for senior day. The next toughest road trip is probably Southern Illinois on the 5th. That's a tough place to go and play, but over there in Carbondale. But I think they got a really favorable schedule, coach. I mean, I was look when me and Timothy did the Valley preview, I think I had them at like 8-ish, 9-ish wins, maybe, if everything clicks for them. I think that's going to be a team everyone's going to watch out for. I also think William and Mary is going to finish higher than 15 in the rankings. And also, too, coach, I'm very, very hesitant on Furman. And I know my guy Hunter Nelson telling me don't sleep on the Paladins, but coach, when I look at everything they lost,
right,
I don't know if they got enough to replace it. And I also think Carson Jones is a very fundamentally different quarterback. Coach, you have a guy in Huff who made a lot of plays with his legs, was an extender, was kind of a playmaker, and you
made a lot of plays happen.
Kind of a pocket quarterback. And he doesn't have the same weapons and a new offensive line and everything. And then you lose Travis Blackshear on the defensive side of the football. I think Furman, coach, we talk about the kind of the benefit of the doubt you give Valley and Big Sky teams because of historic success. Furman's kind of that team in the South because they've historically been really good. They've won the most SoCon championships. They always seem to replace. They got a lot of staff continuity. So I get the benefit of the doubt. But, coach, just to put in perspective, I had Furman at 26 in my rankings. I didn't have them on the top 25, and they ended up 12th.
Outside looking in.
So I'll admit if I'm wrong, but I think when I look at the SoCon, Chattanooga, Western Carolina, both have better rosters right now than Furman.
And you're usually not too far off. I'll give you that. With your deal, when you drive the bus, you drive the bus, and when you don't get on the bus, you don't get on the bus. So I've got to believe you on that one. But again, we talk about it on this show all the time. When your trigger man changes, it's how quick can you get him adjusted and what everybody else has going on around you. But you've got to get your trigger man going first. And they lost a lot. They lost a lot. The 3 programs that we've talked about all lost significant amount of pieces that made them who they were last year. So, again, preseason rankings are what they are, but I can feel you being just.
Oh, might have lost coach here just for a second. But also, Hunter, Hunter makes a good point in the chat for those watching as we try to get coach back on here. They did bring in another quarterback from USC. So maybe Carson Jones isn't the starter, but I think he would be the favorite, especially I understand that last game. I think it was Wofford, if I'm not mistaken, where he really didn't play well, kind of might have cost Furman the like home field advantage further in the playoffs with that late loss, probably cost him a higher seed. I want to see more of him in terms of how he played against more Chattanooga when he came in to replace Tyler Huff after injury. So that's my big question there. Coach, the top 10 here, obviously the top 2, no surprise here, South Dakota State, North Dakota State, Montana at 3, Montana State at 4, South Dakota at 5 is a little iffy, Villanova 6, Idaho 7, Sac State 8, Chattanooga 9, and Southern Illinois 10.
I think that's a little too high for Idaho. And you know how I felt about those guys last year.
Yep.
They lost a lot of significant pieces, man. And again, some programs reload, some have to rebuild. This day and era with the transfer portal, maybe they could, maybe they found some to replace those 2 kids that put up a lot of offense for them, last year. So, the unknown is the unknown, but inside the top 10, I don't know. Where did you have them?
So let me pull up my poll real quick. I think I had them top 10. I think I had them at 8. I'm higher on them than you this year, coach, which is kind of shocking because that's kind of your team. No, I had Idaho at 10. I had them at 10. Here's
I
why,
could get
Coach.
with that.
And this is going to shock you, okay? And I listen. I love my guy Giovanni, man. There's a lot of people who think they have upgraded at quarterback with Jack Lane over Giovanni McCoy.
There's a lot of people that thought someone's little brother was better than the bigger brother, but then it doesn't happen, you know. So
Oh, I feel you.
again,
Their defense will be better, Coach. I'll say this, that their defense should be better with some of the transfer additions they brought in. And also, too, Coach, they return every single starter on the offensive and defensive line.
I get it. I get
I'm
it.
with you. I get your skepticism, though, because, Coach, let's not forget there was that bad man on the outside that wore 88.
Hey, and we know it could have been 3rd and 18. Just get it close, and he's going to get you 19. You know,
Those one-on-one matchups, he was balling.
he was going to get you 19. And then we knew what the running back could do. We knew what the quarterback could do. And if the quarterback is better fit for him, the one that they got coming now, hey, that could be problems. But from what I know, top 10 is just a little high for me.
Another program I think is too high is Southern Illinois at 10. I don't get the hype. Someone's going to have to sell me on Southern Illinois because, Coach, I had them at 20, and I can make a case that they might not even be top 25 right now.
You have them at 20?
Yeah. And that was still kind of iffy. It was just kind of giving them the respect. I can make an argument that they're lower than that. But, Coach, they just have too many red flags. Coach, they've returned 3 defensive starters from a unit that ranked 5th nationally in yards per play allowed. Plus, they lost their starting quarterback. They replaced him with a guy who only had 10 touchdowns and 8 picks last year. And I don't think the defense is going to be good enough to bail them out of situations in the Valley. I don't understand the hype for Southern Illinois being 10th.
That's really tough. That's a lot of ground to make up, man. In a short time. In a short time.
I don't get it. Also, too, Coach, I know you say that the champion, should be the champion until knocked off. Is South Dakota State, including my ballot. I had South Dakota State at number 1. Coach, North Dakota State got 3 first-place votes, and Montana State got a first-place vote this year.
How?
I don't know. I don't know. Real quick, though, Coach, I want to shift to this. I know we don't have a lot of time. No HBCUs in the top 25. FAMU received the most votes. So let's see, 26, 27, 28, 29. They were 30th with 65 votes. North Carolina Central was 31st with 52 votes. And then Alabama State was 33rd with 17 votes. Those were the 3 HBCUs that got votes. Any surprise that there wasn't an HBCU team to slide into the back end of that top 25?
Oh, definitely. I thought FAM would at least be closer. I thought they deserved to be closer, and they did a heck of a job, recruiting. But then, it kind of goes down to the same thing like we were saying. Idaho loses a ton of guys. Albany loses a ton of guys. FAM loses a ton of guys, coaches. I just wonder what the measuring stick is to get into the top 25. Because one of FAM I feel like should have been in there. Central, I get it. But then they also did make, but then they also made the playoffs last year. So, what's the given the benefit of the doubt nod? Where do we strike that line at? Where is that at? But it'll all play out.
I think for me, and here's my perspective on it. You mentioned Idaho losing a few pieces, but they do return a head coach in almost their entire staff. Right. Albany didn't lose any coaches. They lost a lot of talent, but they return all the coaches. And I think when I look at FAMU losing Willie Simmons, when we talked about this, probably 2 months ago, I do try to balance projection along with giving credence to, bro, if you went 11-1 last year, like I got to give you, some credence. But I personally think that FAM's the 3rd best team in the East right now.
Oh, ain't no doubt. I get that.
I didn't have. I'll say this because I do rankings to 40 or 50 usually, coach. Because here's what I hate, and we'll kind of I'll try to keep this quick. The reason I do that, coach, is because you saw what happened with Western Carolina last year. A bunch of voters go to 25. Well, now where was Western Carolina in your preseason ballot, guys? If you
Yeah,
just went
for
to
sure.
25, you don't know. But coach, if I have my ballot to 50, guess what? Based on the first 3 weeks of the results, I can tell you why teams moved to my top 25 because I know who was at 35. I know who was at 38. I know who was at 50. And I got those teams ranked. But once you get past 50, coach, no one's jumping from 60 to 25 in the first 2-3 weeks of the season, unless it's an unprecedented situation. But for me, the two highest teams in my rankings were North Carolina Central and Jackson State. And
Why Central?
I had Central, I think at 27 or 28. So they were right there. The one question for me though was quarterback.
Hmm.
It's
Right.
just, man, I got to see it because, coach, I've seen too many times. I mean, look across. Let's just keep it in the HBCU realm. Replacing Felix Harper was tough.
Oh, no doubt.
Replacing even last year, Shador Sanders was tough. Replacing Akil Glass was tough. Replacing Kincaid was tough. But I do think, and here's why, coach, because even though I don't have Central my favorite in the MEAC, I think Central's going to win 9 to 10 games potentially. And I think
Mhm.
Central's in the playoffs this year.
I can get with it.
Just like
I can get
last
with that.
year, Central was top 15, coach, but Howard wasn't ranked.
So, and pulled off the shocker.
Exactly. So
Um,
that's kind of where I am. I think Morgan probably wins the MEAC, but I think Central's out of conference is going to set them up to make the playoffs.
I think Morgan wins it, huh?
I do. I've
We
said
talked
that.
about
I voted for Morgan in our predicted order of finish. We'll have to do that. Our SWAC predicted order of finish is coming out soon. I can't wait to get the reaction on that. Me, Timothy, Gerald, the staff all votes on that. But yeah, coach.
it.
So I think, and I also think Jackson deserves a little credence, coach. When I look at that staff, and I've talked about on the show, returning quarterback, TC has familiarity with that system. Like, let's just be honest on that. Like, TC's the OC. I trust TC in that thing. I think Quinn, and this is no offense to last year's DC, I think Quinn's an upgraded DC. And I think when you look at some of the returners in the secondary and on the interior of the defensive line, I do think Jackson has all the talent. And I think the offensive line's legit. You got Irv Mulligan. I like their wide receiving core with McCray, Rico, and some of those young guys they're bringing up. So I think those two teams are the closest. And then when I extended my rankings, coach, let's say 40, I had Alcorn, Morgan, and FAM in that next ranking too. So you got 5 HBCUs in the top 40 for me.
I can dig it. But again, when we're talking about FCS and we're talking about the top 25, I mean, there's a different metric for everybody.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
that no one's gonna ever put out what their metric is. So again, we that's a fight that will continue on
Oh yeah, for sure.
for as long as it is. But as long as we got our show, man, we're gonna always be able to pump that. When Alcorn jumps out 5-1, how they deserve some love to be in the top 25. So we'll keep
That's a fact.
working, keep swinging that bat at that. But at the end of the day, at any level, when you're talking preseason top 25, it is what it is.
Yep. Just preseason.
Just preseason,
And also
and
too,
all that could change.
I saw a comment too, and this is what makes it hard. And we've coached, I don't want to get into this because we gotta move on here because I know you got a meeting here in like 15, 20 minutes. But the reason that it's so hard in the preseason to sometimes rank some of these teams is because of the out of conference stuff. And we've talked about this. Because the conference doesn't win out of conference games, when FAM has questions, I'm giving credence to a team like Elon because I've seen Elon against the other top 25 teams. I haven't seen FAM play the other top 25 teams. And so it's an easier one-to-one comparison to me. And, coach, we've talked about that a million times, and I don't want to get to that conversation today, but that's really the difference with preseason stuff. But, coach, real quick, HBCU quarterback battles, man, there's been a lot of conversation about quarterback battles. Real quick, I'm going to give you your time. How's Mako looking at fall camp this year?
I'm not just saying that because it's this is where I get my paycheck from, but It's been really, really good over the last 2 weeks. And, tomorrow we'll tee it up again. But, there's 4 guys in that room that can play. And, we feel good about all 4 of them. But right now, he's the guy. And, we just kind of rock from there. But, you know, it's a league where you got to have 2. And if you don't have 2, you can find yourself in a little bit of trouble. So, we feel good about what we have in that room. So, I like our chances with him. And, we still got 3 weeks before we jump out in Alabama. So we'll see what happens.
I'm excited, man. And man, shout out to G in the chat, Coach. I don't know if G's on the phone with y'all's AD, man, but he said y'all are bringing that noise to Fargo soon. So y'all making that trip up to face the Bison.
That's news to me.
You say that ain't happening right now.
That's
But man,
not this year. That's news to me.
oh man, shout out to Kaz and G, man. They always going back and forth. But real quick, Coach, some updates that I've heard. Obviously, Mako's the guy at Alcorn. I know there was some smoke around Jackson. Based on the people I've talked to, it's Jacoby and Morgan all the way. Like, maybe the other guy will have some packages, but Morgan's going to be the guy. And then also, too, I know there was a lot of smoke about Grambling State coach with Crawley. I talked to someone who's real close to the staff. Listen, man, they are high on some of the other quarterbacks, but Crawley's going week 1. And Crawley has established himself as the guy over there from people I've talked to. It's going to be Crawley. We can kind of put to bed the conversation of Grambling having another quarterback. The big news though, man, Norfolk State. Obviously, Otto Coons was the first team all MEAC selection at quarterback, but has not been taking the first team reps over at Norfolk State. And Jalen Daniels, who comes out of Garden City, JUCO, he's been taking a majority of the first team reps, and that Coons is trying to get his spot back. Huge development there for Norfolk State. Coach, I don't know if you heard me, but Otto Coons, first team all preseason MEAC quarterback on the all conference team, coach, has not been taking first team reps. Is currently getting beat out by Jalen Daniels out of Garden City.
He can play. I recruited that kid.
Yeah.
Out there at Garden. He can play. So I mean, that if he wins, they're getting a pretty good one started as well. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, and then also too, Cameron Sapp, former FAMU quarterback who was up in Norfolk, is not on campus right now. Don't really know if he was dismissed, if he decided to try to transfer, if he just stepped away from football. But Cameron Sapp has not been on campus at Norfolk and is no longer in the quarterback competition. He's still listed on the roster, but he's not competing for the starting job. Also, too, news out of Alabama State this week was that Andrew Body and O'Brien, a transfer from Eastern Illinois, were having an intense quarterback battle. But also the report did say Body is the strong favorite to start week 1, but that O'Brien was making the competition interesting. And then Coach Erob obviously said he brought in O'Brien, who's a graduate transfer from Eastern Illinois, and said that he brought O'Brien in to be the starter too. And that he's going to let him compete. And coach, they've been kind of open to 2 quarterback systems at Alabama State recently. So I'll be very interested to see if they do rotate quarterbacks. But coach, I'm going to be honest, I think it's still Andrew Body's job. And I think that's more coach speak than anything.
Well, we want to make sure that everything is open and ready to rock, no doubt about it. But that one is an interesting tidbit. What's the
Coach, here's the thing is a lot of the times if you bring a quarterback to media day, like that's kind of the ultimate announcement. Yeah. I just don't see, and everything has been Body. Now, could O'Brien be playing well enough to be garnering some attention? Maybe, and that's good, coach, because coach, whoever I don't know who you guys have listed as the number 2 behind Mako, but that's better for y'all if he's balling, right?
Yeah, you want that push. If you don't have that push, then that you should be a little worried.
Yeah, I still think it's Body's job, man. I'll say this. I will bet any amount of money that Body is the starter when they go up against North Carolina Central week 1. I just thought it was an interesting report coming out that they let that get out, Coach, that it might be a battle. And then obviously the last one, Coach, and we'll hit this last topic quickly. Southern has like a 5-man race right now, but the candidates, Noah Bodden, Woods, Jalen Woods, and then T-Set, the 2 redshirt freshmen. Bodden obviously started the Bayou Classic last year, Coach. And there was an announcement. Terrence Graves said that he is going to take a step back and not be the one. You can't hear me? Drop in and drop out and come back in. But Graves, guys, said that he was not going to name the starter, that he was going to leave it up to his offensive staff. Obviously, his offensive coordinator, Mark Frederick. And the biggest question for me is, when do they expect to make that announcement? They have McNeese State week 1, who's going to be led by Clifton McDowell, former Montana quarterback who led that team to the national championship last year. Really, really great All-American linebacker, and Micah Davey. They added, I think, 50 or 60 players from the portal, McNeese did. So they're going to have a completely revamped roster. I don't think you want to go into that game running a multiple quarterback system, but right now things at Southern are a complete toss up right now. Coach, you got me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
But so I was just talking about Terrence Graves said that he was going to take a step back, and he's letting Frederick and that offensive staff name a starter. No timeline yet. The 3 favorites are Bodden, Woods, and T-Set right now. But I just can't see how Frederick wants to go into a 3 quarterback system against a team like McNeese next year.
No, it's not to start your first one out. No, and that's interesting to hear Coach say that. That's interesting.
That we'll leave it at that. Coach, let's get to this last one, man. I want to let you chime in on this. One of the questions that was submitted today is, if we had to rank the most impactful assistant coaching hires this offseason in the SWAC, who would you point to?
I'm going to remove us from that category because I feel like Coach Gales was a very good hire for us, and will be very impactful for us offensively. But I will move him out of that, and I think you just kind of hit on it. SU with Coach Frederick.
Oh, okay.
The last 2 years, he's been on the sideline during the championship game, and I think that counts for something when you're talking about bringing people in the building that has that have an understanding of your competition, of your conference, and things like that. So I like to think that he's got to be up in the top as well. He's got to, if not the top, he's got to be one of the top.
I like it. I'm gonna go the opposite. Kind of the transition to your pick is funny enough. Is my number 1 on my list was Anthony Whedon at PV, who's taken your guys Frederick's place there. I do think Frederick's an interesting hire, but to me, Coach, when I look at Whedon, what he did at Campbell and what he's done at Presbyterian, and being at PV as a player too, returning to his alma mater, I think that offense is going to take a massive step forward. Coach, you don't win the Graphite Award talking about the best offensive play caller in the CAA if you can't call some plays, man. I think he is going to take that team to a new level, and I think he was the best hire when you have quarterback issues, because he's been so good at developing quarterbacks. So I think Anthony Whedon would be number 1 on my list, man. I'm really excited. And Coach, I want to throw this one out here because I don't think this move was talked about enough. What about Tony Holt at UAPB? Now, obviously, they don't have, it's the talent issues a thing, but I think Tony Holt at UAPB is an interesting hire.
And the only reason I don't put him in that, and please don't take this the wrong way, is because at certain places you could hire Nick Saban, and I'll just use him because everybody points to him as being the guy. It ain't gonna matter, and I just don't know how much of an impact, if that makes sense.
Oh,
And
I'm
no
with
disrespect.
you. And yeah, I do. I am. That's why I think it's that's why I kind of made it as an honorable mention, because I do question his ability to. I don't know his obviously. Let's just put it like this, Coach. Grambling had so much offensive talent last year
right? Oh,
that
no
it
doubt.
was like just don't crash the Lambo. And then when they took the play calling away from him,
They
allegedly,
crashed.
they
They
crashed because
crashed.
they were balling when Hull had full control of that offense. So I do think this coach with a team like UAPB, if his play calling is good enough to put them in positions to upset a few teams, they're not going to win the SWAC. They're not there. We obviously know that. But coach, what happens if they can get past Texas Southern? They knock off, a Southern or catch somebody or knock off, one of the other teams across the conference in the other division. And we're sitting here, UAPB wins 3-4 games.
That's a successful. That's a successful mark on your resume.
I agree. And then my last two honorable mentions, Coach, since we got to do three, I like Casey Walker, who came in with FAMU as a defensive line coach. I think, man, if you go look at what he developed at Louisiana Tech, and then even go back to his Texas A&M Commerce days, Coach, he coached there when they were in D2. I want to say he was like right after they won that Natty in 2017.
Mhm.
Bro, his defensive line at Commerce was insane. I mean, they had 10 sacks, which is like the D2 record in one playoff game. He was developing monsters over there. And then also Javancy Jones, I understand, a lot of people are hyping up the Callie James. I still need to see it from him, coach, because he's still a super young coach. He doesn't have, I'm looking at guys with pedigree. Javancy Jones, at what he did at Louisville, is legit. I think him as a player, bringing that mindset to the outside linebacker room. I know my guy Scotty's been calling for Jackson to hire him for a while, but I think Javancy Jones is a massive hire for them. And also, too, he's a special teams coordinator, coach. And if you could say one thing about Jackson, they needed some special teams help. And Coach TC was not afraid to say that at media day. Special teams was a point of emphasis. I think bringing on Javancy for that and to coach the outside linebackers, edge rushers was a massive hire.
Yeah, and that's somebody that's familiar with the building. So
Agreed.
you kill two birds with one stone in that situation.
Agreed. Well, man, coach, that's it for the topics, man. You got time for this or that, or we got to roll for the meeting? Oh, we got the meeting going. All right, man.
Oh,
Well,
don't
coach,
they look so? Don't the preseason type? Don't he look so enthused to be in my meeting? He looks like he's chomping at the bits. You know what I mean? Like, they're all just chomping at the bits, man. Who's got the playlist tonight? Who's it on? Don't hire Ryan. So we play a playlist, no rap. They got to bring me something different to the table.
Oh, coach, next live stream, you're gonna have to tell me who in the room has the best ox. If y'all are traveling, who gets the ox in the room?
See, the problem with it is it can't be rap, right? So they really struggle outside of that, except for one, and he's a little older. But the others struggle, and then they try to send each other playlists. Hey, but then like, okay, well, who is this? And then they can't name one person on their playlist. Like, who has a playlist that don't know the people that are playing on their playlist? So that tells me that you're cheating. You've called somebody at home and said, "Hey, mom, I need a easygoing playlist for our meeting or whatever." And then you're like, "Okay, oh, who is that?" Um, it's Brandy, dude. How do you know? How do you know it's Brandy? So I don't know who will have the ox, but Ryan's got it tonight, and we'll see at the end of camp who's brought the fire.
Man, I like it. Well, coach, I'll let you get out of here, guys. Man, hit the like button, subscribe, all that good stuff. Me and coach will be back soon.
Yeah.
But for Coach Fred, myself, for the Bluebloods FCS Football Central, man, we out for right now.